Hello, thank you for joining us again. This is Robert Kruger, your host of the Voluntary Virtues After Hours show. Um, I had some good conversation with the previous participants in the Voluntary Virtues Roundtable, and we've got them back. And of course, we've got other people who will be joining us in the future. I think Michael Shanklin will be dropping by, and we'll certainly give him some updates as to what it is that we've been talking about. But most specifically, we had a conversation that was going on the Hangout before that Kenshi wanted to know what happened with. So Kenshi, why don't you just go ahead and ask what it was that they were talking about or whatever.
Oh, I think that Liberty guy, Liberty Geek, was his name, or whatever.
Oh, Liberty Geek.
Yeah, he was talking, and I don't see him here.
Oh, okay. Well then, do you remember, Matthew? Do you remember what it was that Liberty Geek was talking about at the time? Matthew, are you there? No? Yes? No? Guess not. Okay. Well then, I guess if you could just kind of like give me an idea as to what it was that they were talking about before it got disconnected.
No, he's just talking about something about his show about something
Oh.
controversial,
Yeah, that you should have a show.
something about Japan. Then I logged off.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's see. Cody is going to be coming back here shortly. I know that he had to go grab a beer or something like that. And obviously, we're changing over from our soda to our beer. So let's let's go ahead and get into it now. Um, I think we're going to wait a little bit on the Austrian business cycle thing so that we can have him come back and join us. I know that specifically Chuck was wanting to get a little bit more into that. He was real curious about that, so we'll save that one. So then the other question that was coming up was advertising freedom or advertising against the state. And recently there was a video that was thrown together by Heineken regarding the regulations that go around beer and so on. I didn't get a chance to see it. Did you have a chance to check it out? No?
Not me.
No? Okay. Well, yeah, it's easy enough to make commercials that are critical of the state. But the problem is getting them on the air and actually making them, getting them out there because the financing of it. What is the profit motive? Where are you going to get the money to fund you if you're going to do that? You're not selling a product. So how do we actually create some sort of financial incentive for advertising for freedom? What business model can actually work for that? Um, do you have any ideas as to how that we can make that kind of thing happen? Is it just something that you have to do like it's just a loss? Maybe do a Kickstarter and get people to throw money at it, and it'll just disappear into this well of non-profitability.
Yeah, I don't. I think if you're gonna do something like some type of public announcement, it's got to be non-monetary profit. So whatever goal you're going for, I don't think it has to be monetary in nature as far as profitability is concerned.
Right. So maybe we're missing something here. I mean, is there a possibility of maybe using some of these things to? Can we advertise liberty and create like a comedy show that would?
Is your purpose to convert people? Because the best thing to convert people is actually episodes. I think I don't like the conversion method as far as because people are too content with the way things are now. They're too complacent because number one, even though we're getting taxed whatever, per capita GDP is I don't know 40 grand, and the government gives us more than we pay in taxes as not as nominal evidence from the deficit, right? So there's nothing to complain about. You need an episode. You need some type of episode, something for them to be angry about, for them to actually convert. So I still think that advertising, like in this time, um, like I really think that a lot of people convert over anarchy when the Great Recession happened. That, not Ron Paul. He was kind of like, it seemed like he was a figurehead, but I think actually people gravitated toward him, especially in the later election. What was it, the 2012 election or whatever, because of the economic recession. It wasn't so episodes like that actually motivate people to change the regime. It's not when they're happy. So
yeah, Kenji, you actually make a really good point there. In regards to Ron Paul, timing was everything in that case, because when you look at something that's not promoted much, like Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged, you can actually track sales, and when the economy is crap, sales of that book go up. You know, it's word of mouth, and you're right. I think it's discontent that makes people want to consider other options.
yeah, I mean you can't blame the average person. I mean, the only thing I don't mean to sound kind of but I'm kind of hoping for that event to occur to get this over with. It'll come sooner or later. That's what I think. As like Chase said, I think. So
Right.
I'm of the belief to have you initiate action such that it instigates that event.
Okay, so what you're saying is basically that Ron Paul happened to be there at the right place at the right time, but the thing that actually does the converting is the being pissed off about the fact that everything's going to the shitter.
Yeah.
And then the thing, you don't think that the fact that he actually did some predictions and they came true was integral to that?
I don't know about his predictions. I mean, there's a lot of I was one of those doomsayers all the way back from the tech bust, right? So that's kind of like how I got my libertarian roots back in 2000. Nah, his predictions were awful. I mean, you can point to some things, you can point to other things. Price of gold, economy collapsing. It kind of looks like he's wrong at this point. Well, I think in the long run he's going to be right, but only time will tell. I think it's inevitable, but I'm not God, so could be wrong. But I'm betting on it.
Yeah, you're betting on it. How is you've invested in gold?
I'd rather not say. I have a lot of nickels. Got
a lot of nickels being the ones that are actually made out of precious metal, tin.
Oh yeah, they're all made out of 25% nickel. It gives them a face value currently of par. It's actually worth what its face value is in base metal. It used to be worth 110%, but that kind of went away. But yeah, you can say I have investments in precious metals and such. I want to be into more virtual currencies and stuff. That's what I was hoping to talk about too.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that after we finish up with this idea of advertising liberty, advertising freedom. So your assertion is that you don't get converts by persuasion or advertising, but instead you get converts through suffering.
The atmosphere has to be right? So you got to have discontent.
So
and the economy, on the surface, the numbers, they kind of make it look like we're recovering. I know, it's kind of like that, right?
No,
so,
it's the numbers published by the government say that
even if we're not recovering, even at the depressed level, the quote unquote depressed level we're at, for God's sakes, man, that's still a good life. I mean, so you're still number one.
So we're going to have to go into like what the Mogadishu situation was.
Yeah.
And then
They
when
have a
it's
lot to be
real time.
discontent about, right? So then you're gonna be pissed at your tax collector, especially they're not providing the same services as our government is, because the whole world isn't lending their production toward us, right? So the U.S. government's able to provide more than what we pay for in taxes because the world is loaning us that production.
I guess the way I look at it, Kenji, I totally agree with what you're saying on a mass scale. But as an individualist, I also know that we're always seeking our own best self-interest. I mean, that's what we're all doing. And that's exactly what you're referring to. I think that when you're not feeling like you are fulfilled in your needs, then that's when you're going to go searching for something else, and that makes you open to reason and evidence and that kind of things that we want to present to those people. But I think also that it may be possible to reach people on a smaller scale, and because we all have discontentment in our lives one way or another. Granted, I think in this country, or this part of the world, I should say, most of us have discontentment that's self-inflicted, But to get to Robert's point, I mean, I think maybe that we would be able to target some of that discontentment that exists now without having to wait for a mass discontentment, and be able to reach people to the message of reason and anarchy, that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
sure. I think then it has to be directed to the youth. As far as older people, they're usually set in their ways,
Well, and then
and I
there's
think the
also the
people are,
idea of pet projects, like gun advocacy groups or whatever. So there's people who are very discontent with the way the government is going, and individuals in their little pet ways, right? So it seems that we should be able to use that to get them to see a broader scope, if you will.
you can only hope, but I think the best candidates for the smartest have already joined the movement. So it's kind of like the law of diminishing marginal returns. So
Yeah.
at this
Well,
point, just wait for another economic event.
well, I would say this, that you're kind of actually missing the point of what advertising is. Advertising creates a dissatisfaction with one's life, and then satisfies that discontent. And so we actually can create discontent.
So you're
Um,
using Jedi mind tricks.
no, it's how advertising works. I mean, people they'll tell you this idea that, wow, your life would be
Here,
so much better if you actually had a car that attracted women. So you don't have women up that are flocking to you like this guy here in this ad. So you're inferior. So you need to get yourself this car and make yourself not feel inferior. That's how advertising works. Is it creates a need, an image of a need, or an idea of a need in the viewer, and then they satisfy it by buying your product. And so in the case of, let's say,
it's a cynical way.
advertising, what's that?
It's cynical. It's kind of a cynical way to look at it. I mean, sure, some advertising could do that. Some advertisements could actually be pointing out a flaw you might not be aware of that you may want to correct.
Well, yeah, but it's still. I mean, it might be a real need. It might be a real dissatisfaction or a real, fatal missing flaw. But
Not necessarily they created, right? That's all I'm saying.
it creates it in the mind of the moment. They weren't aware of it
Brings it
until
to their attention.
to their attention, so it creates it in their mind. It makes it real in their mind. And I'll give you an example of one that you'll get a lot of zeitgeist and RBE proponents. They'll say, well, look at this advertising campaign for the smoking lobby that they were trying to get women to smoke. And they said that if you smoke, you will be showing your independence from the patriarchy, that you will actually assert your individual freedom as being a smoker, and showing off that you are a free woman. And the thing that's stupid about it is that I talked to them about this stuff, and I'm like, so they made this claim that if you are, as a woman, a smoker of, specifically, I think it was Virginia Slims, that you are asserting your womanhood, that you are empowering yourself, and so on. And so they bought these cigarettes and, sucked down all these carcinogens and all that stuff, and that's all bad and whatever. But did it or did it not give them a sense of liberation and freedom and self-empowerment? And they always have to agree, yeah, they actually did get a sense of self-empowerment by doing that action. So yeah, it it may have been a quote unquote fake claim, but it does what it did what it said it was going to do. It actually did empower these women to say, yeah, I'm a free, independent woman because I smoke. When all they had to do is say, I'm a free, independent woman because I walk outside the house or whatever the hell it was. But by the action of smoking, they confirmed it to themselves and internalized the truth of their freedom and in independence. So yeah, that's how it works. Is that you create a need, or you materialize a need for something.
I just thought advertisement, the theoretical objective for advertisement is to differentiate your product. I mean, producers are going to have different products. You got to point out the advantages versus your competition.
Well, that's just providing information. Advertising
that they're not aware of, right? I mean,
right. But
you have to,
that might be marketing, perhaps. But advertising itself, creating an advertisement is in order to persuade someone to buy your product, not necessarily just know the difference between what your product provides and other people's products provide.
But if the good is homogeneous, there's no reason to go toward branding. So
right.
that's essentially what you're trying to do. You're trying to differentiate your product, actually highlight the advantages versus the substitutes or competitor.
And the only way you can highlight advantages is if you point out, well, this is how you'll benefit from it, and in order to show how they'll benefit from it, you have to show that they have a lack of that benefit.
Yeah, but it's up to the final consumer to determine if that's actually true or not, and it's up to nature to figure out whether they're right or not about their choice.
Yeah, but you can.
But
you bring it into their mind. You make them understand it and internalize it, and that's the goal: is to get them to internalize the I don't have this, therefore I'm deficient.
It might be they're ignorant about it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's just a cynical way to look at it, right? It's like you're creating the need that's not there.
Sometimes a cynical way is the truest way, though.
Sometimes, but it's sometimes, right? It's not
I'm not sure which one is the more cynical, actually, Kenshi. You heard Robert's point of view. Kenshi, you actually reminded me of a Max Planck quote that I love so much. I had to go look it up for you. He says, "A new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die, and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it."
There you go.
That's beautiful.
Good ideas evolve.
Definitely, and welcome back to Chuck. Thank you for joining us again, and I think we got Mike to join us as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. What's up, everybody?
What's up, Mike?
Talking about trying to advertise freedom.
I hate that stuff. It should be banned. It should be banned. No, but I already got my way, it appears. Anyway, I'm glad to be here, guys. I had to take my wife out to eat like once a month at least, I sound like a horrible husband now, but it's really good to see you, especially you, Robert. I can't wait to see you this weekend coming up.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, definitely. Definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah. And it's not, everybody's saying, wow, you're going to be like 105-degree weather. That's not the part of Arizona we're in. I've had to say this like 100 times. They're like, man, you should really be careful. I'm like, the average temperature is actually like 84 degrees around where we're at, so it's really nice. It's up a higher elevation. I think it's a national forest, right?
Yeah, and absolutely, and we should actually advertise that. We should advertise the Jackalope Freedom Fest. If you are in the Arizona area and you can attend this festival, you're going to have speakers that are going to be there. You're going to have Michael Shanklin. You're going to have Larkin Rose. You're going to have myself. We're hoping that Josie Wales will be able to join us, Josie the Outlaw. We've got Ernest Hancock, I believe, going to be speaking there. We've got, firing demonstrations and instruction on how to fire firearms going to be provided there as well. It's going to be a great time, and it's kind of near the Heber Overgaard area, near Payson, and kind of like between the two of those. And if you can make it, definitely check them out. Go to Google and type in Jackalope Freedom Festival, and you can find more information about that. It's on the 1st through the 3rd of August, and I will be heading out on the 31st to stop off at Scottsdale, play a little bit of poker, and then head on up. So I will be seeing anyone and everyone that I can there. Also, another thing. I have found out that I'm going to inherit some property in the area, and basically I've got kind of like the ability to kind of like make some decisions about it already now, and we're going to have anybody that is interested in going to take a look at the property. It's 40 acres, again, near the Heber Overgaard area. I'm going to take a look at my land out there and see what opportunities that we might have to create a community of liberty-minded people. I'm thinking that one of the things I'll have as a contract is that I will be the arbitrator for all disputes.
Oh.
I don't know exactly all the things.
Not one including yourself, I hope.
It's that kind of liberty where I decide all the disputes.
Well, if
Yeah.
you don't like
Freedom.
it, you can move.
You don't like it.
I'll just go move to Somalia. So
Yeah, rabble.
No. I'm totally joking. We're gonna have to figure it out. But certainly, if you are interested in actually establishing a place where you own your own home and you're not paying city taxes and all that kind of stuff, we're looking at potentially having Kyron Pearson join us out there and having him assist with the creation of maybe not what are they? What's the spaceship term or Earth ship? That's right, Earth ships. But they won't be called Earth ships. They're going to be called something else because
shit, we're really far advanced, Robert. We got spaceships at your place, like shit.
It's Earth ships, Earth ships. Yeah, but you know what? We might create a space program there too. So screw it. Why not? Who knows?
It'd be more efficient than NASA. That's for sure.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
Anarchy on Mars.
There's only one way to get to space that I know of. That's for sure. I want to say how much of a pleasure it is to finally be on here with you guys, Shanklin, Rob, Cody, and I know I've been checking out a little bit of Matt's show on the Christian anarchist stuff, and you guys are great. I've been holding down with the Agorist Underground show, Agora Underground, and just keeping up with you guys, and it's great. It's great to finally be on board and to personally be able to give my regards to each and every one of you.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, it's good to have you on this show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, here's how it works on Tuesday nights. It is like our circle jerk. We admit it. There's a lot of voluntarists who have known about this network for a while now. And, Robert and I have been doing this, man, a long time now, just a while. And it's really awesome that there's so many great people. Like, I sometimes forget how good humanity is, and I'm usually always the one who stresses it every day. People are like, I've got to the point in life where people are like, I hate people, and this one guy did something mean to me, and so I hate that type of person. And I don't know. To me, I'm just such a, most human people actually mean to do well. There's just scarcity, and we have to deal with the lack of, resources and, the poverty that the state has brought us, or that lingers because of the state interactions, etc. So I like to just say, most people are really good people, and you know what? It's nights like tonight when it just proves it. It's like all these guys that we've known for a long time, reputation theory is truly being upheld because I just feel really comfortable. Like I know that if something happened to one of us, somebody would help each other out. But the nice thing is we're all self-sufficient because we respect each other's time, etc. It's just really good to know we have such a great network, and I can step away and go to work for a while, and really I'm working a lot of hours over here on my end, and you guys, the network keeps growing. Did you guys see we have, just in the last week, 27 more people trying to be on the network as show hosts. I haven't even contacted them yet. I'm about to contact them tonight. So it's great to see it continuing to grow, and man, it just really gives me a lot of hope for the future and of all the quality people that we really do have,
If I can add to that circle jerk too, I want to thank you, Michael, especially for letting some nerd who, a lot of people probably wouldn't take seriously in the Liberty movement, and actually letting him have his own half hour to talk about what he wants to talk about, and it's great. I've been having fun, and this network's great, and you guys are almost becoming a second family to me. It's pretty crazy. You guys are great. So, thanks a lot, Michael. Cheers.
Well, I had a great
Thank
time
you.
with you on your show there, Chuck. I think that we had a killer session there. I think that we talked about something really important. So I can't remember for the life of me what the hell it was, but it was definitely some really really cool shit.
And I'll just bring it back up again because no, I haven't forgot it. Michael and Robert promised to do a Dungeons and Dragon-esque type game with me, a Liberty-themed game, and I haven't forgotten. And you guys are not getting away that easily.
It's true. It's true. I admit it.
And
I told
I'm not
you,
letting you get away with it. But
no, man, I'm telling you, like I said, we've been trying to work it out. We had a little bump. We've had some speed bumps, but I'm telling you, August 4th, I get back, and I don't have a trip planned for months. So it's like Donkey Kong. I am in. I'm going to read the book.
You guys are going to love it.
Try and send me some summary or send me a book that has if you're going to give me a 200-page book or whatever it was.
I'll give you the cliff notes. I can literally teach you the whole thing in 5 minutes. I just won't waste your time now because I know you guys are really busy. But I haven't forgotten, and I'm pretty sure no one else has forgotten. And I can't wait. You guys are going to look like total nerds. And
Robert. Okay, next time I'm on, what is it? I'll be home from Arizona by next Tuesday. So if we got to go over the rules on air, we'll do it the last thing. So
yeah, but I'm not gonna be here. Actually, you're gonna have to guest host it. You're gonna have to do the guest host of the after hours because I'm gonna stay behind in Scottsdale, and I'm gonna play some poker. Okay. I love the 816 Hold'em game they've got there. It's just so amazing good. It's great.
Like I said, I can have time to get caught up really fast.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm gonna also let you know that I think it's the 22nd or so. It's either the 22nd or the 29th of August that I'm going to be heading out of town again to go up to Colorado with my parents. They're celebrating birthdays and anniversary. I think it's their 50th anniversary, and maybe it's 50th anniversary. Might be 60th. I don't remember. Anyway, got to go on that. Can't ditch that. So, unfortunately, if you're going to be setting up the game, I'm going to be missing out.
Oh, we're not going to be setting up. I'm just going to go over the roles. I just want to make sure everyone knows what's going on. It doesn't take very long. It's a really easy system. So I'm not putting too much pressure on you guys. You guys won't look like too big of nerds. You won't have to learn.
You're gonna rig the game, aren't you? Like we're screwed.
I'm confused. What game are we talking about?
And if you land on this,
okay,
then Michael loses, and if you land on this, then I win. See how it works?
All right. So basically, it's more like dice rolls. If you roll a 1 through 6, you just lose, and it's a 6-sided die. So, but no. So basically, what it is, Matt, is there's this system I wanted to run as like a Liberty Geek thing because I thought it would be really cool for the show. And if you've heard of Dungeons and Dragons, it's kind of like that. Everyone gets together on in this case, an internet table. You make a character, and you tell me that your character's doing stuff, or shit. It's the after hours. Who gives shit? And I say, okay, roll a die, and that's basically how you determine if it works or not. And it's literally that simple. It is role playing at its finest or worst, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, but
it's going to be a liberty-minded game. So I'm not just throwing something together. This is going to be liberty-minded. And that's why I think it's a great way to get it out there and show you guys that, yes, everyone can make asses of themselves for liberty.
But the only problem I have with it is that it doesn't allow for character optimization. I'm one of those munchkins that...
okay. Trust me, we can make that work. I'm one of my own favorite DMs for Dungeon World because I'll let you do just about anything. You want to go crazy? Don't worry, I'll go crazy back on you.
Cool. All right, I guess we should actually get to what it was that Kenshi wanted to ask. Kenshi was wanting to have you continue your dialogue that he popped out of in the Voluntary Virtues the hangout was continuing to go after the show was over. You guys were talking about some stuff, and he wanted to hear what it was that you guys were talking about, and he missed it.
Oh boy.
Do you remember what it was?
Are you talking to me, or was it from last week?
Kenshi.
Kenshi, are you here?
Yeah, he's just talking about something about how his show was about to get controversial or something.
Oh yeah. So I don't want to go into it too much because otherwise I'll have no episode on Wednesday, or Friday, because I would have gone over the whole thing here. But me and Adam Brandt, who is obviously another host, who does that really long Latin name which I can never remember. So, but he's a really cool guy. I'm not harping on him. But we're gonna be talking about Japan recently enacted this like harsh child pornography law there, where basically anyone caught with like real life child pornography will, you'll get fined more, you'll get put in prison more. But something that's been pissing off like the liberals over there was it didn't cover fictional media like animated or drawn media. And, so like the left in Japan is basically saying, well, this should be banned too because, and they give all sorts of stupid reasons, like it's grooming children to be sexual. It's like, no, it's not. It's just like video games. It's not grooming kids to be sexual and violent.
Don't they have a reproduction problem anyway?
Well, to be fair, there's a lot of old people there, so I guess they do have a reproduction problem. But then the artists, on the other hand, are basically arguing that, look, it may seem weird to all these markets, but we kind of make a lot of business on this, and if you ban this stuff, which isn't harming any real child in the first place, it's all fictional, there's no kids involved. None. Zero. It's fictional, it's drawn. And basically they're saying is if you do something like this, it's going to hurt the artists, it's going to make them basically live in fear for putting anything to paper, and it's going to kill, not maybe kill, but it's going to definitely hurt an entire industry, either for profits or for, freedom of expression. So that's basically what my show's going to be about, and I'm basically going to come out on side of the artists and say, look, it's not real kids, whether you think it's gross or not, it's not real kids.
Okay, now there's something seriously huge about this, because in recent history, the Japanese are making artificial robots. I don't know if they're robots, but I think they're just no, they're animatronic, or they're robots or animatronic.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
They are children, sex toys.
Yep.
They are sex toys that are made in the shape of children that you can enjoy yourself with. It's believed
I won't say they're not a weird culture or bizarre, but it's they're not real kids. That's what I'm going to argue with, whether I enjoy it or not. Which I'm not really into that type of shit, but it's still not real kids. I mean, once you do use real kids, you might have a problem. But might, but like with robots and going even beyond, thank you. But even going beyond robots, it's like should we? And the reason I found this was a really terrible CNN article, which is how they are. If it's a government anywhere, they're for it, right? So, but my argument is just this, especially on the art end, is like it's pictures. That's like so thought police, It's like
it might actually provide an outlet too.
Yeah.
Well, wait.
I mean,
let me, if you can clarify real quick, Chuck. Government is against or for what exactly?
Okay, so there's two lobby groups, basically within the government that are fighting for legislation. One group is called, I believe let me double check. I'm gonna actually get facts right, because that's the kind of channel we are.
Well, I mean, of course, we got lobby groups on both ends. I mean, I would imagine there's right-wing lobby groups that are lobbying for more stricter.
So the one group that's going for the banning of it's called lolicon in Japan, which is like little girls, like art about basically about little girls and stuff, sexual or not. That's basically their version of the Democrat Party. They are the liberal left over there. And the group that is lobbying to not have this banned is the lobby group headed by Ken Akamatsu, which is called the oh crap. I can't remember the name of it at the top of my head. I'm going to look for it. But basically the idea is one group is saying this should be banned because it's bad for the children and it might lead to real life pedophilia. And then there's one group that says, no, it doesn't. We're just artists. It doesn't hurt anyone. Art is, as controversial as it is, art is not a crime, and enjoying art is not a crime. And, that's basically the whole argument going on right now. So that's basically going to be my show.
The article that Robert brought up about the robots and such was actually, when I saw it, it was presented as an outlet for pedophilia that would not harm children. It was like a children's advocacy situation. So
it was a therapy plan.
Yes.
I mean, it's a weird therapy plan, but we're all weird in our own way, right? So
well, I think what they were going to do is they were going to use young styled robots that were, I guess they're animatronic or robots, whatever, animatronics, I think. So they're going to use animatronic child dolls in order to satiate the desire. And then they would have different models that would increase in maturity in design. So then you would bring them further and further along and get them more comfortable with the idea of having only having relations with an adult. I don't know exactly how well that would work or whatever, but I mean, quite frankly, it's a very touchy subject, and as soon as you start dealing with this type of subject, you're going to get hate groups that are just going to freak out. But truth be told, at a point in our history in the United States, what happened was you had tradesmen who had skills in certain areas, pipe fitting, doing shingling or other carpentry and things like that. And these skills are of a nature that were very easy to take on as a child, and you would see a lot of young people entering into these fields and taking the jobs that were out there and lowering the price because they didn't have to get paid as much. They already had a parent taking care of some other things going on in the home, and so you would see that there was an incentive for these people to lobby the government to create child labor laws to prevent children from actually competing with them. And so they created a new concept called adolescence, which didn't actually exist prior to these legislations. And they actually started putting in the idea of having a children's school that was required, that you have to go to school for a certain period of time. And this was all to prevent competition. Well, it created a lengthening of childhood that people did not grow up at the normal rate at which children actually become sentient beings and capable of deciding for themselves what they like or don't like and moving out from their parents at the age of 12 because they're now perfectly capable of living on their own. They can provide for themselves, and they're happy to live on their own. So this creation of adolescence through legislation has changed the whole dynamic of how people perceive the understanding of a person capable of making rational decisions. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that every 14-year-old girl knows what the fuck she's doing when it comes to her life and what she's going to pursue, but she's not a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm. That's just life. When you're young, you do something stupid and then you learn from it. So, I mean,
well, I think there's an argument to be said too that a lot of those laws promoted a late maturity level. A 14-year-old 200 years ago had
getting married.
Yes,
they were Pharaoh.
Well, they had a lot more sense of the world and where they were going and what their part in it was than a 14-year-old does today, who can't get a job, who can't do anything outside the home except fuck off and drink illegally under the table. There's a really strong case that all these laws just stunt the maturity level of the children that we're talking about in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And people think, well, that the reason why we have immature children and children that don't understand what how it is that you should treat other people in our society, in other words, showing respect, is because we're not spanking them enough. Really. That's the reason. That we're
Right.
not spanking them.
Not because we're sending them into an institution, for most of their lives that basically says sit down, shut up, and only speak when spoken to, and then when they actually have a chance to speak up, they go, "Huh? What do I say?" So.
Well, not only that, but this system that they're all in, this government school system also teaches absolutely no connection between action and result.
Well, they don't want
in the real world, you fucking earn your living, and nothing's handed to you. And our children are kind of put in this society these days, not just in school, but just the mentality of a lot of parents too, that if it's their job to take care of them, they provide every freaking little need. They put them in every sport. The child has to earn nothing. And then when the child is 17 or 18 and the parents are like, why is this bum still, not getting a job? Well, it's because you taught them that everything in life is fucking handed to them. And I think that the schools play a big part in that too, because you're just a cog in the freaking wheel. You hear a bell ring, you get up and you move.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, yeah, but that's basically going to be Friday, is just me talking about how, whether you think it's disgusting or not, it's their right to still enjoy art, and on top of that, it's just art. So that's basically going to be the epicenter of my show. So, and maybe if I get hate mail, I'll get famous.
Well, I'm going to spin this off a little bit because there's a topic that I discussed with a friend of mine, Chris Guerra, and he's a very smart man, and he's joined in my philosophy in Anarcho-Capitalism. He was a libertarian for quite a while, and we had discussions, and I guess through his own research, he determined that, he is an anarcho-capitalist in principle, and he has different means by which to achieve what he thinks is a good goal and so on. But the thing that we were talking about is the idea that there is no social contract. Well, what about the social contract of parent-child? Is there a social contract between parent and child where the child is contractually obligated to the parent to be the child of that parent and not to pursue their own self-interest in some fashion, even if it is against the wishes of the parent? And I was of the opinion that if I were a next-door neighbor of a child who felt that they didn't want to live in an environment where they were being indoctrinated into something they didn't believe, or maybe they were being asked to do things that they didn't care to do, and I was willing to have that child move in with me, for me to offer solace to this child, to give them a home to move to that they may choose to do so. Let's say at the age of 5 years old, the child says, I don't like my parents, I want to move in with this parent over here, and have them be able to provide for my nutrition, my sustenance, my shelter, and so on, that they have every right to do so. And my claim was, yes, absolutely, that any who is capable of making a decision like that should be able to do so.
Right.
What do you think of that?
Well,
I agree.
that's pretty. If I can add in real quick, that's a pretty big jump, though, Rob. Wouldn't you say? Going from earlier you were mentioning 12, 13 being an age of a child being able to enter a contract and consent into an agreement, and now we're lowering that down to 5 years old. I mean, a 5-year-old to me is very sporadic and very spontaneous, to a point of not even knowing the consequences of their actions, in the sense of if they weren't reared right in reality, they're going to say, yeah, I want to leave my parents, I want to go to Splashtown, I want to go to Six Flags, at the middle of the night or whatnot. And this doesn't mean that the long-term effects should be actually honored, right? I mean, so at what age do we really determine a child having contractualization? Right to contractualization is really I think the argument at the core of both the pedophilia issue and this issue with kids leaving their parents, or is a kid obliged to listen to their parents? And I would say, to a degree, yes. I mean, the parents are paying for the food, paying for the shelter, paying for the clothes, paying for their schooling. And this is no different than when government gives us these things, right? When government gives us welfare, they technically own us at that point. We are dependent on them. And once you're dependent on somebody, then you are technically under servitude, though it's not slavery, right?
So,
Allegedly.
well, first of all, obviously, I think we would all agree that the idea of using a number as an age is an arbitrary distinction and completely irrelevant to the conversation.
I agree.
Absolutely.
But I mean, there is a number range when it comes to the development of the. I mean, when's a contract able to be formalized by a child? You know, when is a contract valid? Does a 5-year-old have a right to sign off on a car if he inherited a bunch of money? Does that make any sense? I mean,
Depends on the 5-year-old.
Yeah, I would say that yes, it depends on the 5-year-old, and like one, it depends on the 5-year-old, and two, you also take an account of, okay, in a free society, let's say that 5-year-old contracts for a car, right? And that 5-year-old, you know, all of a sudden wants to renege and has to pay fees associated with reneging on that contract. Well, as long as the parent isn't going to be stuck with that too, because they are also their own person, just like the kid is their own person. The kid has a free will. The parents have a free will. I'm with Robert on this one, and I'm going to say that while the kid can get into contracts and honor contracts, it's a case of that then you make the kid understand that that's fine, but that means that your parents are no longer have to pay for it because they are also their own person, and they never signed off on the contract in the first place. Is that fair to say, Robert?
Yeah, I think that what we're going to see is basically what will happen if you allow for this freedom of of changing positions, changing parents. Let's say, for example, you would see that there are a lot of people who would basically offer their services as a custodial parent, and they'll go ahead and say, come on in, come on over, and some of them will be pedophiles, and some of them will be obnoxious, and some of them will be great. There will be a huge variety in the opportunities that exist. Now, what will happen though is that because the child is now free to have locomotion of their person at any age at which they actually can make decisions and then jump ship, the decision making process is available to them. All right, well then what happens then? You'll see that the parent will have an incentive to be gracious, to be nice, to not be a dick to their child. And then you'll see parents actually going through a process of converting themselves into a caring and loving person who doesn't have to worry about that kind of thing because people don't leave if they're loved, especially if there's such a bond that you have between parent and child. So I think that this not only does it provide liberty for the person who may be very young, but still has, is cognizant of their situation and has makes a choice to change their environment, but it also causes an incentive for the parent to become a good parent.
And I also think that if you give that child freedom of locomotion, and let's say they go out, I don't want to go away from my parents because they won't let me do X, Y, and Z, right? So let's say they go out and they try to make their own way in the world at 5 years old, and they realize, wow, the outside world kind of sucks right now. I kind of appreciated my parents, giving me shelter, buying me meals, and and they might actually become more appreciative of their parents in the first place because they realize that, wow, my parents were actually doing pretty well for me. I can't handle this. They were handling it for me, and you know what? I think I appreciate them more, and I want to go back. Or they could just be stubborn like kids are and still keep trying to make their way around the world, but there's always that hope, right?
I bet you're just chomping at the bit, Rick.
I think we just lost him. I think he's lagging out.
Oh, well, damn.
I know, right?
I had a proposition here for you, and to look at the other side of the coin, because, Robert, I've never heard the parent-child relationship referred to specifically as a version of the social contract. How about the other way around? Is the parent contractually obligated to care for a child that is theirs? Let's say the child is 3, 5, 10, 15, these arbitrary numbers, and they just don't fucking like the kid anymore, or they don't want to be a parent anymore. They're tired of the responsibility, and they just want to kick the kid out.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just look at the truth of the thing. The parent has created the child from nothingness. The child is now a at some point a sentient human being who's capable of making decisions, of pushing for justice into redress if they've been wronged. And this kind of ties into the antinatalism argument that yes, at some point could you sue your parents for having brought you into this world and have them required to provide the funding necessary to cease your life. This type of thinking. Now, basically, what would happen is that, and this is something that I got into in another discussion, where a parent basically abandons their property rights, but it's not property rights, it's parental rights, by ceasing to provide for the necessary components of being a parent. Just like if you cease to be a property owner because you have left your property abandoned and then another person squatted that land, or it requires another person to come in and claim property rights for your land to become abandoned and then taken over by another person. And so the claim is made that you no longer own that, I own it, because you abandoned it. The distinction is kind of muddy in a variety of ways, but what you'll see is that a parent who abandons their parental rights ceases to provide shelter, ceases to provide food, ceases to provide water, all these things. Well, any other prospective parent can come in and say, I'm going to make claim to parental rights for this child. And then they will provide these necessities to the child, and then will claim ownership or parentalship of the child. And at that point, they can take the child's claim of dependence and the parent's contractual obligation to have done what it is that is necessary for them having created the child, and maybe do a lawsuit for on behalf of the child to provide some sort of remuneration to the prospective parent. So there's a lot of financial things that go into this, and I haven't really explored the thought clearly. I'm just exploring it now, kind of like off the cuff, just coming up with these things. But the fact is that there is a new human being who has rights, who has a claim to have a contract with said parents. If those parents do not provide those things, then does that person have now a lawsuit available to them, and can that lawsuit be homesteaded by becoming a parent to the child, and then on behalf of the child suing for those losses? And so I think that there is a case for that. Obviously, I'm not completely developed on this, but I think
what you're saying is it's somewhat of a one-way contract. So the child has no obligation to the parent. The parent does have obligation to the child.
I kind of want to argue against that, if hopefully Robert won't kill me, but I would say, I know, because Robert's a very violent person, but but I would kind of argue in the sense that I think that there's no contract either way. I think that I personally think that all social contracts are stupid contracts, and so I would go around and say that there's no obligation either way. Both of those have to be both ends of the spectrum have to be very voluntary, because I kind of don't like the term parental rights, because a child is still a person, and voluntarism denounces slavery, and when you almost say parental rights, you almost are basically calling your child a slave. That's kind of how I feel about it. So I would say that there's no case on either side about one side suing the other because you weren't a good parent or you weren't a good child, because in my opinion it's all strictly voluntary unless you actually both parties sit down and specifically sign a physical contract. That's kind of how I want to put it. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know.
Well, I would think that as long as the parent has decided to raise the child, or claim to have parental guardianship of the child, that the parent is obligated to provide at least food, and shelter to the child, as long as they want to claim guardianship. Outside of that, I would say, as soon as they say, no, I don't want to be responsible for the child, I'm not going to claim ownership, yada, 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 then there ceases to be some type of contractual obligation. But the very fact that the parent is saying, right after birth or whatever, claiming ownership of the guardianship rights or parental rights or whatever the heck you want to call that, they have bound themselves to certain obligations or parental obligations of providing for the child's needs.
Yeah, Chuck, I since Robert had to step away here, I'm going to go ahead and say I was just kind of baiting this whole thing because my thought here is that it is a one-way contract, and the reason is that you said that it had to be very involuntary, and generally speaking, I would agree with you once that child is of an age of reason, but that child up to that point had absolutely zero choice in the matter. The choice was actually thrust upon them to exist by their parents. And because of that, that obligates the parent to provide for that child somehow, even if it's just putting it up for adoption. But that creates somewhat of a contract, if you will, in that they've obligated themselves, basically. They voluntarily entered into the agreement, but the child did not. So that's why I look at it as somewhat of a one-way contract on that.
Absolutely, I would totally agree with you that it is a one-way type of thing, that the child has certain positive obligations from the parent that you wouldn't have otherwise, because they didn't enter into the contract without, they didn't sign a contract.
And I might point out, too, that as far as my limited exploration of philosophy, it's the only relationship where that ever exists that I can think of between people.
Well, certainly, in the case of artificial intelligence, if a person develops an artificial intelligence that's actually capable of sentient thought and independent self-awareness and so on, I suppose that the same thing would be the case.
I can go for that if it ever happens.
Yeah.
That's kind of a good lead-in, actually, for another topic I was hoping would come up that was mentioned in the last show. Unless you guys want to keep talking about this.
No, let's go for it.
Kenchi and Chuck, both of you mentioned Bitcoin during the last show. And I just wanted you guys to go on it, because it's been a while since I've had any conversations about
Actually,
Bitcoin.
yeah, sure. Can I ask my question to Kenshi again? Because sure. I really want his answer. In a free society, because you were talking about a barter economy, and obviously a barter economy is just a part of a free society.
Just for the purpose of the analysis, I'm going to barter.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
I didn't say money wouldn't be utilized.
Right, but let's say.
Hold on. I got to interrupt because we did get a comment from the YouTubes. And we want to try to engage our audience as much as possible, so I'm going to have to postpone that conversation just for a moment. Beeves Magoo asks, what do you guys think about fathers who beat or kill kids for sleeping with their daughters? What's the line in defending your family? Is there one?
Ooh. I'll take this one. I'll take the bait. I think that if your daughter or son, let's not be it's misogynist now. But if your daughter or son invited that person, I think you claiming that you were defending them kind of doesn't stand up. Now, if that person is forcing themselves upon your child, your daughter or son, then yeah, you have a right to terminate, in my opinion. I mean, I guess that's the best way I can put it, because in my opinion, like I said, if you invite them, that's them inviting the person in. Whether that person is making a dumb decision or not, it's still their decision, right? And so, but if it's not their decision and it's a case of, some sort of force or coercion, such as rape or just general strong arming your way in, I think then you have a right to terminate.
Yeah, well, I think that's a little bit excessive. Look,
Okay, maybe not terminate, but you get what I mean, right?
yeah, well, here's the thing.
Because we specifically mentioned killing.
If a person illustrates by their own actions that they do not accept self-ownership, okay, I'm not sure if it goes to the point of killing, but it certainly goes to the point of mutilation and to experimental drug testing, tattooing, branding. So if you want to grab that kid who has raped your child and brand on their forehead "rapist," more power to you. Go for it.
Well, like I said, I just mentioned termination because he mentioned in his question he said beat or kill kids. So that's why I went that far.
Never living shit out of him. You absolutely have every right to. If that was a rape type of situation, absolutely go for it. The person has explicitly. Not explicitly, actually, it's implicitly consented to having their own body used by others without their permission. That's what rape is.
You could hire a pedophile to rape him back.
Mm-hmm.
But why won't...
Are we going to have a market for pedophilia now?
Looks like it.
Now that's just going to be one more reason they hate us,
Yeah, I don't know if my laptop kept overheating. I had to jump over to my PC, but I don't know if you guys have heard Walter Block's breakdown of basically abortion and how he came to the conclusion that obviously the woman owns her body and the child owns their body, and in cases of rape. Well, let's go with the easy one. In cases of consensual relations, the woman has an unspoken contract to take care of that child. And like you were mentioning, Rob, earlier, once the mom decides to neglect or refuse to do those responsibilities, then those responsibilities could then be passed on to anybody else that wants to pick them up. But then in cases where the woman gets raped against her consent, and there's a child put into her body, Block basically, came to the conclusion that eventually, we might have the tech to be able to extract eviction, right? You might be able to evict the child and extract the child and preserve its life without killing it, and still, maintain the property rights of self-ownership of the lady involved. And just to go back, Rob, on that last point that you made before I got cut out there last time. There is a kind of a big difference between negligence, a parent like refusing to take responsibility for the child that they consensually, had, and then a child, it's quite different than a child like asking for emancipation or declaring independence from a parent that is providing those responsibilities. Because then at that point, does the child, can the child defend himself? And again, it goes to that age thing of at what age can a child make a contract? I guess that would be I can see a lot of people attacking us on that point where they would argue that ANCAPs argue for babies signing contracts or whatever.
Well, obviously, the thing that's important to realize is that if a person is in a circumstance and they're an adult, they make decisions based upon a lot of experience, a lot of history. And they feel that they've got like some superior knowledge, and they in a lot of ways do. They have superior knowledge, but we cannot, because of subjective preference, because of subjective value, we cannot know the truth that we hold is more accurate than the truth that they hold, and so there is no logical point where I can say, well, this person is a 2-year-old, therefore they're incapable of making these decisions. I can't assume that I'm right and they're wrong. Okay? I have to assume that I might be wrong. And if they want to take these actions upon themselves, say I want to move in with the Joneses because my parents, the Smiths, are jerks, well, it's their choice.
Well, and then what if you have like I want to move in with the Joneses, and because the Joneses have an Xbox, and then the Joneses are like, well, no, we don't want to take care of that kid, that guy's that couple's kid.
Then that kid has no right to go there.
Right, obviously.
Right. But then you could see then the much needed there we go back to the appeal of the state, right? Well, we'll take care of the children that want to be emancipated, and we'll make sure that they're taken care of. And it just seems to me, I mean, I don't know personally, I just get these red flags of like cultural Marxism just coming up, pinning different classes against each other when they're actually on the same team in a lot of ways.
Well, to be fair, Rick, the state's not going to give you an Xbox. So
Well, they might if it's part of their plan, that
their indoctrination plan.
Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely. But no, the thing that's okay.
Well, they give them phones, right? They give them phones and
That's true.
EBT cards and whatnot. You can spend
Absolutely.
a Jack in the Box.
All right. Well, the first thing is that I don't know if you were here to hear the whole conversation. I think you cut out before I made my point. What this does is it creates market incentives. And there are incentives for parents to treat their children with respect and love. And because of the physiological bond that occurs between a parent and a child, specifically between the mother and child, but certainly, the time association, spending time with people, you build bonds. The bond being built with the mother by being in her uterus for all those years, not years, what the fuck I'm saying, months. But anyway,
I was a late bloomer too, Rob. I was a late bloomer.
I was in her uterus for years and years. No, but seriously though, you've got these bonds that occur that are primal, that are natural, and they're hard to break. And unless the parent is being a complete prick, you can kind of get away with a lot of crap. But realistically, if you go beyond a certain point, that point's pretty big, and for a child to say, you know what, I don't like these people, I'm going to move and take advantage of the opportunity presented them by, some potential parent seeker, somebody who wants to be a parent, has to be pretty vast. Now, obviously, there are going to be some parents that are going to be fairly wealthy, and they're going to say, well, I can provide you an Xbox, a hot tub, a swimming pool, all these great things.
Yeah. Michael Jackson even provided them with a whole amusement park.
Absolutely. So you've got all these these market incentives and so on. And realistically, okay, yeah, that's going to be somewhat of a problem. But you know what? The market worked it out fairly quickly because the supply of really cool shit to go and enjoy is fairly quickly satisfied by the number of kids that would be drawn and attracted to it. So maybe that also tends to even the playing field when it comes to the money situation. But the thing that I really want to stress is that a child cannot have his or her self-determination overridden by some other guy who just says, well, I'm right and you're wrong. It just doesn't make sense. There's
but self-determination to what point? I mean, for example, you have a 15-year-old boy. He just recently gets his state-authorized license to be able to travel on his property that has wheels and an engine in it. And then, so you let the kid, you give the kid a car. You buy the kid a car for his 15th birthday. Don't you have a right? You paid for it. You're the parent. You're watching out for the kid's best interest. I mean, if you didn't, and you needed market incentives to take care of your children, I mean, you're probably a piece of crap parent already and need to be put in an asylum or something and should have never had kids. Because if you need, right? And I'm not trying to diss Rob. I mean, you always make really valid points and you're always on point. But I just think on this thing in particular, it might be just slightly off, only because I do see that the parents are essentially providing the livelihood for the child, and I do believe that when you provide physical assets, just like a business owner, when you provide capital and you provide those foundational incentive, not even incentives, those foundational pillars to get everything going, to have the kid even eat and live and survive. Then you have somewhat of a say of how those resources are used, how you could use them, what times you can use them.
All right, so let's just say for the sake of argument that I'm going to buy into the whole thing. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument, all right, you've got some financial investment and so on. So here's what the rules are. In order to gain financial independence, to become your own child, your own person, blah, 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 and to move into the Michael Jackson estate that you're being offered, the parents must be compensated equal or double of what it is that they've already put into your rearing. So now you have no financial loss. You're completely compensated, so suck it up. Okay, is it all just a matter of money? Is that really the point? I mean, you've put an investment into this person, and you've given them so much help and so on. But Michael Jackson is certainly willing to go ahead and compensate you for your labor, literally.
Well, yeah, and again, going back to the point, if you're willing to sell your kid for money, I mean, that just goes to show what kind of piece of crap parent you are. I mean,
but
you
I guess the
weren't
question
fit
is,
to be a parent to begin with. I mean, so I mean, if you need market incentives to be a good parent, like you're a crappy parent, right? People are parents because they, like you said, the woman has to raise the child in the womb for 9 months. The husband has to, for the most part, provide, and for their kid. I mean, there's a relationship built. They come from your genes. They come from you. I mean, this is, if you don't love that, you are not valid and not optimal for a free society in any way. I mean, I think Stefan Molyneux would agree with that, right? I mean, we try to change society without dealing with the family unit. It's like moving a statue, by trying to move the shadow or whatnot. I mean, we're not.
How is what I'm saying not actually like achieving that goal? Then you're getting the parent out of the picture because they're a crappy parent. It's a good thing, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. If the child is, if their rights are being abused to where they're being starved because, or being abused physically, or being indoctrinated to the point to where, the child is actually being in detriment and hurt, from the process in some way, then yeah, I mean, someone can step in and speak up for the child. But then that opens up a whole other philosophical realm of discussion. Is kind of the Miesian versus like the principled look. Is a human being because they can engage in praxeology and human action, or are they a potential human being, or does this also extend to animals then too? Can people stand up for animal rights and say, well, people can stand up for children's rights and they can't really speak for themselves? I'm going to stand up for animal rights. And, where do we draw the line on standing up for things that can or can't speak for themselves? Go ahead.
I would say that, yes, that people do have the right to stand up for animal rights, but the difference is that standing up for animal rights is definitely more market incentive than... I kind of agree with you that, yes, if you're willing to sell your parent, you're probably a crappy person anyways. But on the other hand, it's, I think that there still should be that right, because the difference between a child and an animal is an animal literally, I mean, except for a parrot, right? But, I mean, most animals can't, interact with humans via, like language, like physical language. Like I say, hello, how do you do? My dog's not going to look at me and say, fine, thank you, will you please feed me now, right? But the kid, you can say, how do you do? And your kid will look at you and go, I'm kind of hungry. So I would say that you can stand up for animal rights as much as you want, and you can say that kids can't speak for themselves as much as you want, is more the point I want to make. But in the end of the day, I still think that kids can speak for themselves, and it's done time and time again. Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, I want mashed potatoes for dinner. Mom, I want french fries for dinner. I mean, I would say it's hard to say that.
Haven't you seen your cat or dog? I mean, my cat frickin' does this all the fucking time. It'll come, meow, meow, meow.
Yeah, that's true, and you know what it wants.
It wants frickin' wet food, and it's got dry food already, but, it wants wet food, too. So,
right.
I mean, they do communicate. And, I mean...
But I guess the more point is they don't handle... how do I put this without sounding stupid? They don't handle wealth? No. I mean, the animal isn't the one that's making... It can't possibly make financial decisions, whereas a kid could potentially be smart enough to make financial decisions. About that.
Yeah, but potentiality... Oh, go ahead, Matthew.
Well, I think Walter Block did a great article, and I think he actually dealt with the question about animal rights, the issue of animal rights, yada, yada, yada. And the way he argued is that, look, if we wind up occurring someday seeing a dolphin speak and say, hold on now, you cannot kill me, we have right to live, and yada, 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 right? They'll be able to defend themselves against attack and assert the right of existence. then we would grant that the whole. It doesn't matter if we can find a second dolphin or not. We'd grant dolphin the entire right, and the right would be, if you will, be granted to the species, not to individual dolphin. So
Yeah.
too, when we come to human beings, is that human beings have the capacity to stand up for our rights and to assert them, that we exist, and because we have the capacity, we grant the team and a child uh, uninhibited by, if we don't, if there's no intervention, whatnot, or natural death early on or something, it will eventually grow up into a adult that not only has the mental capacity to do this, but literally have the physical capacity to do it as well. We grant, so rights are something given to us as an entire species, something we have by our very nature of being human. So so this is what makes the distinction between standing in for a child right versus an animal is the animal doesn't actually have any rights per se. The child actually does by virtue of being a human being.
But realistically, I think that Walter Block's points on this are quite valid. That if a species has a representative of the species that comes forward and says, "Stop this shit. That's bullshit. I'm not having it." It's the responsibility of the oppressed um, to fight against their oppressors and to create an opportunity for growth. But the thing that troubles me about this is that actually it's not taking into account what is going to occur, which is the market, the price system. The market will determine a price associated with a certain action. And prices are not just dollar figures. Prices are actually emotional costs and physical costs, labor, things of that nature. And what you will see.
Demand,
What's that?
supply and demand, yeah.
Yeah, the supply and demand. And so what you'll see is if we come to a point where the supply and demand of society is such that there are so many vegetarians or vegans or whatever the hell you want out there that they're willing to put forth the effort and the financial backing in order to create a opportunity that provides for freedom for these animals, then what will occur is that we will become, as a species, we will become vegetarian. It's just going to happen. It'll be very, very expensive to buy food that is of an animal nature in order to satisfy whatever physical need. And the reason this is going to happen is because of technology. I mean, you're going to have artificial meat being made. You're going to have all these alternatives that will occur that will make it not viable to rear animals just for the consumption, because there will be alternatives created that taste about the same or taste as good or better than the meat that you would get from these animals. And free markets will potentially put an end to our killing of animals for our own sustenance. And so then now we start to have the problem of destruction of a species because of economic environments. And so I mean, there's just so many things that this goes into. We could spiral out of control into all sorts of different concepts. But I think that I just want to wrap up the whole concept of what we're dealing with the parent-child relationship, without going into the animal thing and the animal rights, and we can maybe talk about that some other time.
Yeah, and just to wrap that up real quickly, the only reason I brought that up is because a child that's, I don't know, still nursing, breastfeeding is probably can't even talk, and it's in the sense like an animal. I know it's a human being, and I totally agree with that statement that it's a potential human being and has inalienable rights regardless. But it's the same situation. So I guess I would just agree with a child having the right to a contract somewhere between 5 and 15 is probably the age that it falls on. But I don't know, that would be determined by market forces, and whoever wants to make a contract with an 8-year-old can do so. That would all be determined by market forces in the end, I guess, was my point.
Okay, but I guess this is where the obligation being abrogated. If somebody abrogates their responsibility to the child by not feeding the child, not clothing the child, not sheltering the child, not giving water, whatever sustenance is necessary for the child, that you will see that another person who is an interested party because of their grandparent relationship or whatever, neighbor, all these different people have the opportunity to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to go ahead and take this unwanted, it's just like, let's say you have a sandwich, okay? You take your sandwich, you set it on the park table, and you go off and play some frisbee, okay? It's completely different than taking the sandwich and setting it in a waste bin and going off and playing frisbee.
Yeah.
Somebody comes over and takes your sandwich, you can go, what the hell are you doing this? I'm just playing frisbee. You give me back my sandwich. Okay, one thing. But if a parent is actually like not caring for the child, not providing the things that are necessary for a child to actually grow, to live, then they have essentially put it in the waste bin. And at that point, any person who has a means and an inclination to go ahead and do those things to provide for the child has a claim to do so. There is no, the abandonment of the child is just as much the abandonment of land in the property ownership, and
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. I didn't have any disagreement with that point whatsoever. My only disagreement was with at what age can a child emancipate themselves from their parents? And,
as soon as they can demand it. As soon as they can.
Yeah.
I think another important point that we also learned was Robert was born 2 years ago, and he looked exactly like this because he had been in his mother's womb for God knows how many years.
No. I just turned. I am now the answer to life, the universe, and everything. As of July 24th, I am now the answer.
42.
Oh, man.
So I am the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. So, I've got the title on this freaking thing, and we were going to talk about Austrian business cycle, and I really think that we need to get to that before the show ends. And we have half an hour, and I hope that's going to be enough time for us to actually really get into it. So, Kenshi, you said that it was a lot easier to understand how the Austrian business cycle works if you take money out of the equation, because all money is actually facilitate the interaction between barter and make it easier, but it creates all sorts of confusion about how the process works. If we take that out of the equation and actually start thinking about things in a case of barter, just assuming that our barter is going to be accepted, whatever, we'll accept the fluidity, but we don't want to create this artificial construct or concept called money. So how does that work? Why don't you go ahead and elaborate, if you would, please?
Well, yeah, you're so by removing money, so you're just gonna assume the efficiency of exchange, because we all know the double coincidence of wants is a problem in barter. So by removing money, you actually see that all it is essentially barter, and in order to consume goods, you have to produce something of the same value. So, so what exchange does is it homogenizes production. It allows you to produce one thing and consume another. So effectively, you've produced what you wanted to consume. So it maximizes your production in terms of what you want to consume. Does that sound too convoluted?
No. That's actually right on point. I think the division of labor is kind of what you summed up through the effort of everybody pitching in through their particular specialty. The labor that you put into it is equivalent to what you get out through the market.
So I'm gonna bring up Bitcoin again for you, Kenshi, because when you think about in the barter system, you say that you can remove money, but on the other hand, you had to also, for Bitcoin, you had to virtually mine it. You had to set up and make these systems that could get through in a blockchain encryption. So I guess the question is does that make Bitcoin a good that you can trade, or is it still making a money? Because it technically has value. And
money is a good, so.
Yeah, all monies are goods.
Yeah.
But the thing that I just want to make sure that everybody's absolutely clear on, this is no way in any case justifying the labor theory of value.
Yeah, that's okay.
So continue.
Okay, so as far as as far as who has control of the money supply, uh, it's all about predictability, right? It doesn't money. When I say money is neutral or the neutrality of money, it does not. It kind of does, but in an insignificant way affect production. So while you might have Bitcoin miners or gold miners in precious metals, or so someone who increases the money supply in a natural way, it costs resources. So there has to be a profit there. So as long as there's profit there, and there's also predictability. As far as an arbitrary central bank creating paper notes with no physical restriction, with bitcoins I believe there's a
limited. The encryption only supports a limited amount of mining that can be done, because each encryption cycle then gets harder and harder to break, and I believe it's designed to basically be made so it cannot be mined. I believe within 25 years, I believe is the breaking point of which the equations will no longer work.
so
So
I'm
that's
assuming
why I was.
it kind of looks like a logarithmic curve as far as the money supply.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. So I guess that's why I was asking, is could you use it in a barter economy if there was no? I don't
It
know how to
wouldn't.
put it.
I don't believe a barter economy could be sustained. Money is
Because it's
just.
basically just the money. Okay, I was just curious. About
I
that.
just I remove money just for analysis purposes. So when you look at things,
Yeah,
you
but-
want to understand why booms and busts happen. You remove
Right.
money, but I'm not saying it's not going to be. It's going to be removed from a free economy.
Right.
It's going to be.
So do you want me to pull up that image that we saw where there was the explanation of the Austrian business cycle, so you can actually go through it without money, or did you want to actually like talk about something completely different?
I think I already hit my major points on that as far as so money not only facilitates exchange, but it acts as a ledger. So removing the concern of money supply all aside, right? So let's just say it's constant. Fixed supply of money, no one's mining it, no one's bringing it in, no one's printing it. You remove that all. Those are just complications and noise. You can adjust the theory for that, but it's just an insignificant effect. Well, when it's done in a free market, it's insignificant, unless there's some type of mother load. But again, it's logarithmic, right? So the more you find, the harder it is to change the money supply proportionally, right? So I'm sure like hitting the gold rush back then was more significant back then than it is now that the gold supply is much larger. So there's a natural effect for the supply of money to become less and less significant. So we can just remove that concern away altogether. So you can actually understand the process of if you want to analyze the Austrian business cycle or business cycles in general. That's what you have to do. So money's other utility in the economy is to act as a ledger. What it's supposed to do, what it's doing is acting as a placeholder or a ledger. It's supposed to signify demand / production, right? So it must, in order for there to be a unit of money, it must correspond to some unit of production / demand, right? Someone produced something. Every time you see a unit of a money, you know there's some unit of production out there because someone wants something. Now, when you artificially, now going back to the supply of money, if you artificially create this thing without, so going back to hypothetical with a fixed supply of money, no money's created or destroyed, it's always going to be proportional. It's always going to be proportional to production. Right?
Okay,
so
all right, so I get this idea that you're saying that, all right, if I create, I don't know, let's say widget, I create some number of widgets, and there's a bunch of Zandoozles over there, and widgets and Zandoozles are equally tradable and whatever, that by my creation of widgets, that it's an equivalent value, for demand, it's representing my demand for Zandoozles. Okay, so now we've got the exchange that occurs there.
Yeah.
And
So
money just facilitates that. So it is the supply that is demand, is what you're saying, in that we're assuming that the supply is a supply of something of value, and the value is determined by market forces, the price system.
yeah, probably the price system. Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, so then um, the question I come up with then is that, how does time preference work into this concept? Is it just
Time preference. So the problem with production is you produce goods that you don't consume all of it all at once, right? I mean, you want to be able to, let's say, you produce a good that's perishable. You want to be able to. So it's virtually allocating production in another time, right? Just because of the perishability factor. So goods can be either consumed now, some can be stored, some cannot, some have a certain lifetime. So time preference not only you can pull forward production, so you're allocating production, right? You're trading either goods now for goods later, or you're pulling in goods from later now in exchange for goods later. Um, it's just an allocation of time production. It's an allocation of production in time, essentially.
okay? So we know that if we produce something now and then hold on to it for a certain period of time, it may depreciate or it may appreciate based upon market conditions.
You're talking about you're talking about like financial investment. So yeah, you're making a gamble that the need for that will be greater at some other point than what it is now. Yeah.
All right, so I don't know. Let's say that I produce bottled water, and there's relatively little need for bottled water now, but in the future there might be some sort of catastrophe that's going to occur where we're going to see you know a hurricane hit some land, and so we need a lot of bottled water in that particular location. And how I mean I don't see that that the price system. I mean that handles it just fine, but if I don't include a concept of money, I don't see how this is analyzed properly.
So you have to assume another thing. You have to remove the double coincidence of wants. Just assume that whatever you want, they need what you produce, and they're willing to trade for that. That's just for analysis purposes, because your objective is understanding, not how actually it would work in a free economy.
Okay, all right. So I mean, I guess.
So what are you trying to understand? Is what I'm kind of asking.
How does time preference work with what it is that you're talking about? I mean, I guess the thing that I'm okay. If I understand you correctly, then what's going on is that my production is for consumption immediately for myself. I'm just going to consume what I have, and so I'm just consuming my own stuff, even though I actually traded with somebody. It's just a consumption right then. For my own part, so I'm living hand to mouth kind of thing. I'm producing food for me to consume now, and then I'm producing food for me to store in warehouses so that I can consume it later. And this is all this is all a reflection of your concept of what you're doing. And the fact that I have stores of money is irrelevant. It could actually be stores of grain that I produce through being a farmer, right?
I'm not sure what you just said, because you.
Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, time preference basically is an illustration of whether you're going to consume or you're going to create additional productive capacity.
So there's a problem here, because so your productivity capacity hopefully is greater than your consumption capacity. So you're going to always have a portion of your production that you cannot consume yourself. So you need to choose where to allocate that.
Right.
Also, So it's a question of deficit of production versus your consumption, right? So if that's the first case is just what I said, then you're a you're a net investor. If your consumption pattern is greater than what you greater than what you produce, you need to your time preference is for now than later.
Okay, so when I create additional wheat, let's say for example I'm a wheat farmer, I'm producing wheat and I'm consuming my wheat.
So that means your production outpaces your consumption needs.
Right. And so I've got a certain consumption level of wheat, and then I've got an excess that I'm producing, and I'm creating seed grain, so to speak, for future production of wheat. Now, if I did that, and I did it with dollars, then it would move actually into production of robotics facilities or whatever. But realistically, technically, I'm actually creating just more wheat and storing it in a storage shed for being seed grain.
That's how you got the dollars.
Yeah, that's the reason why.
You didn't store it in the silo, but you put it
right.
onto the market, right?
Right, exactly. Okay, so I see now how it kind of like reflects that.
But now you don't have to worry about perishability. That's
right.
where money comes in. So.
Yeah, it really helps.
That's the only reason why money comes in. So money solves some of these little things. It's all facility of exchange.
So the thing that then comes to mind is like, how do we use this knowledge as to how to perceive the trade system in a moneyless concept?
The moneyless thought experiment helps explain to these people. So I troll on Facebook. I must admit.
Obviously.
So yeah, there's all these different schools of thought. There's especially this one new monetary school. It's essentially communism, Keynesianism, but they're trying to disguise themselves as some type of academic thought, right? The MMTers. I'm not sure if you modern monetary school theory, right? So essentially, what they're saying is that printing money is a net benefit, and when you remove the veil of money, and you just show them how it's neutral, and you cannot create wealth from printing money, and you show them why by removing the money from the analysis. Then it just debunks it. That's the only that's where the utility of this analysis comes in.
Right. I get that. All right. So, but I want to try to hit another one of our targets of reproach. All right. So we're gonna have the Zeitgeisters, the RBEs, that are going to say, you know what, money is evil, we don't want money, and your argument theoretically can be used in their favor in a suggestion, except for the fact that you've actually pointed out how it is that money prevents perishability, and money facilitates the problem of the need-want paradigm. So it's an interesting way of extrapolating that. I really hope that you'll, I don't know, put together an article on this and submit it to Mises or submit it to Lou Rockwell, just to actually clarify this thought process, because it's a very interesting way of analyzing how it works, these types of things.
As far as writing an article, this shouldn't be new thought as far as economics goes. That's why I'm just hesitant, because I don't think I'm breaking any new ground. I'm just kind of now that you have social media, I'm kind of bringing it more to the general public and the debates on Facebook or whatever. I mean, that was my only outlet before this show. So.
Well, I mean, realistically, guys, I mean, how many of you have heard this kind of breakdown of thought? I mean, I've not.
No, never.
Well, no, but I don't think the Austrian business cycle theory itself would work without money. Because the Austrian business cycle theory is trying to explain why we have booms and busts. You don't have booms and busts outside of a system where you have, or at least, and if you have a total free market, you have bartering and whatnot, you wouldn't have booms and busts outside of a fractional reserve system like we have now. I mean, in a barter economy, there wouldn't be the business cycle.
Yeah,
if you agree with the Austrian school view on things.
You can actually have booms and busts without money. Like I said, it's just essentially government promising goods which they've never produced. That's essential. That's the effective nature of the deficit. You see that deficit they can't pay back, or the debt they can't pay back. That's the goods they promised that everyone thinks is there.
But that's not what we're talking about when we talk about talking about boom and bust. We're talking especially about a phenomenon in which
You're talking about the mechanism of how they
believe that there is money in that the consumers are saving up.
Yeah, but you're
when they're really not, and that they make a false allocation and trying to pull resources away from the consumers that isn't there. There's a mismatch between consumption and production.
Right,
you can't have this in a
Matthew, you're missing something here. Okay, now I mean we know that booms and busts can exist without government at all. Just look into tulips. Okay, if you look into the history of the tulip system, you know the tulip industry had this gigantic boom. Beanie Babies. Okay, there's booms and busts because of subjective demand and the aggregation of it. So that doesn't have to require a government involvement. And what happens is you have a misallocation of resources based upon a temporary impulse that the society has. And this is what we in the Austrian cycle that they're talking about is that you'll have creative destruction, and so you'll have something become a very needed substance or needed service, and then it'll disappear, like buggy whips.
Yeah,
okay? Buggy whips was an example of a boom and a bust. We had all these carts that needed buggy whips, and then they came out the car and it busted.
Essentially, what booms and busts are just collapses of schemes. Right. So when you have the boom, you have the euphoria of believing that the scheme will work, and then when the bust happens, the scheme will just falls apart. I
wasn't saying anything about whether or not you would have to, whether or not there would be boom and bust if you have a government or not, but you would have to have this entity called money. You would have to at least
you would have to have money. Like if I were to just lie to you and just say, "Hey man, give me your car, I'll give you 2 cars in the future," and then you think it's true. When time comes to pay up, I can't do it, or I can only give you half a car back, or somehow I don't fulfill my obligation. Then the bust happens. The magnitude of the number of people are what you're just concerned with as far as definition of a boom and bust. But it's essentially the same concept. Whether you reduce it down to 2 people transacting in barter, or you have millions of actors transacting in money, and your unit of account is money, a money unit. It really doesn't matter. It's the concept. It's just a scheme that falls apart, right?
I mean, Kenshi, tell me if I basically got you right. I mean, you basically said that you were to do a proper analysis of the Austrian business cycle. You, for the moment, just hypothetically took out money, and that quickly reveals that the economy itself isn't about the production of money, right? That's the job of the Fed, a fake entity. What it really is the production of goods and services.
Yeah.
And all money is the medium, of course, but it's also the storage of wealth that is that you produce, or overproduction that you produce at the moment and trade it off for future consumption. And where the Austrian business cycle comes in, essentially, what you were pointing out, Kenshi, is that when the government starts fiddling with the money supply, then there's malinvestment as far as in production in the economy. Producers overproduce. Typically, right, with inflation, they overproduce and end up with bigger losses at the end, and a whole bunch of extra, I guess, storage and stock.
Yeah, because ultimately, the government. So if you boil it down to a 2-person transaction, like I said before, you have government, we'll call him G, and you have another person, let's call him Robert, right? So if government were to demand something and promise something in the future, you can assume Robert's at full productive capacity, right? What he believes is the most profitable level of production. So he's producing a certain amount of goods for himself and for whatever goods that government demands of him that they can pay right now. But let's say he wants some goods in the future. That's where the bust happens. So the creation of money, it's the right to fake production. It's
it's like claiming that I've got 65 cars on my lot, but I don't, and I can actually pre-sell them to other people, and then when they finally come to pay, get their car, it's not there.
yeah. So they've prepaid with their production, and it's not there. So, but in the meantime, if they think it's good, and it gets more complicated. Not now. That's why the analysis gets a lot more complicated when you go to real world, because you got nations, you got global entities throwing their production our way, but if you boil it down to an individual level, that's essentially what's happening. It's just a promise that government. Well, the problem lies in the government is not profitable, right? Its
Right,
actions
because
do
it's
not
not-
create profit, do not create net profit for itself. So
In
it
fact,
cannot
creates
pay
loss.
these loans.
It-
Yeah, probably. You can pretty much assume that. I'm thinking the deficit and debt are evidence of that. If they cannot actually make and I hold the fact that profitability is a big part of morality.
Okay,
Well,
so
yeah.
why don't you clarify that one?
So, you guys are talking about all these child things, what you would have as a normative law, what should be for law. And I think it's just too dynamic, and there's so many things you discount. I'm like reputation, and you're working within, you're working kind of within the old framework. I mean, if you're doing a free market experiment, there's no child labor laws. So I mean, I don't know if I'm digressing here, but
No,
like
keep going.
they could actually work for themselves, and it's just so many different possibilities that you can't. You can't. I don't know. You can't create a law where you're saying 5 years old. What makes you pick 5 years old? Well, 5 years and 1 month, or 5 years and a day and 2 months. It's
No,
it's
I'm not making any sort of claim about any age whatsoever. I think it's completely arbitrary. I think if a 1 month-year-old,
but making normative laws should be purely contractual,
absolutely, and
explicitly contractual, explicitly.
the thing that
Well, yeah, if the person can't even read the contract, I mean, can they actually sign the contract? I mean, if they can't even sign their name, I mean, I don't think that really counts as a contractual agreement.
what constitutes signing a name, though? What does constitute a signing of a name? Is it a
Well,
is it
I mean, yeah, I mean, if you don't have any arms or you can't write, I understand. I mean, but
no, screw the writing it with the arms of the hand.
you have to be able to consensually and consciously understand what the contract entails, and then be able to fulfill those.
But again, you're discounting the point of okay. So you're having a baby who's let's say you somehow compel him to sign this contract, but there's an enforcer involved, right? The point of having a contract is you're going to present it to the enforcer if one party violates his side of the contract. The free market and then the enforcers will not. You don't even have to. I just the exercise is futile to try to.
Well, okay,
It all boils down to profitability. If it's profitable to enforce this contract, it will be, and it should be. I don't know. It sounds kind of barbaric, but
No. Profit implies a service being done, a service that actually provided a bigger.
Implies it should be done. Actually, long run profitability. That's my claim. So, in the end, that'll be my claim. So I should be able to boil down everything to that level, and then go down to survivability. So it's going to be like singing the 12 Days of Christmas. You always seeing me go down to profitability, then survivability at the end of my argument. So I'm consistent.
So the thing that I have a problem with when you go down at that rabbit hole is that Genghis Khan was the best of us.
No. I don't want. Your goal is to create you. So it's a combination of your genes and memes. So when you just send your genes out there and you're not raising them, that's not true fidelity, right? So you want to inculcate them as much as possible. That's just truth, because you want to create something as close to you as possible, not only in genes but also in ideas and memes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we're running out of time. We got about 5 minutes left, and I'm just going to go ahead and like change the topic completely because I think that we could just go into this rabbit hole, ages and ages and ages. I just want you.
You need to start from a more abstract level and then build up from there, because going back and forth, it's hard.
Yeah, we can have hours and hours and hours of engagement on this, and I think that you bring a lot of good thoughts to the table, Kenji, and I'm really glad that we had you on the show. And you know what? I must say, Rick, you've been a great asset to the show. Wonderful to have you, and I hope that you'll continue to join us on the After Hours show or on Voluntary Virtues, the Roundtable. We certainly, both of you, have contributed greatly. So just to, we got about 5 minutes just left to kind of like just pontificate about what it is. Let's just say that you owned 40 acres of land in Phoenix, Arizona, and you could do whatever the hell you wanted to do to try to advance a society or a group or community of freedom lovers who understand property rights and understand these rights. What would you do in order to make that happen? And I'm going to go to Cody, my man, and just get his input on what he would do with that land.
Man, you put me on the spot.
Absolutely, suck it, bitch.
And not much time to think about.
All right, well, Chuck, you just chimed in.
First of all, I would just say if you build a roads, just put the fucking turnpikes in there instead of the intersections. I mean, how hard is that? There's no reason for stoplights. Stoplights do not need to exist. Let's just start with that. But no, this is a pretty actually serious question that I would like to give more thought to and actually get back to you maybe on next week's show. Or
next week's show is going to be off. I think that either you or Michael Shanklin's going to have to host that one. I'm going to be in Scottsdale taking people's money.
How about the show after next?
That would give me even more time to think about it.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to be heading out to Phoenix. And then I'm going to be going up to Heber Overgarden, that area. So I'm trying to get your input as to what it is that I should be talking about. What sort of things should I be bringing up to the people that are going to join me in going out and taking a look at the land? What sort of things can I think about and offer?
Honestly, just from a pragmatic standpoint, you need to be looking at things like water supply, restrictions on water supplies for surrounding properties and that kind of thing. Look at some of the pragmatic issues as far as self-sustaining property. Do you have your own water? Is the soil rich? Is it a lot of cliffs? I mean, I have no idea what the property is like.
Well, there's a co-op there that offers anybody who wants to, who has a property, I guess it's like a quarter acre is probably the assumption, that if you have this property that you can pay, I think it's like $100 a month, I think, I'm not sure. It's $100 per family or something like that for as much water as you want.
Okay.
And it's either per month or per year, I don't know. I can't remember.
So it sounds like this land is fairly developed already then, right? This isn't just like wilderness, a chunk of wilderness out in the middle of nowhere then.
There is a development in the area that it's kind of nearby, so it's kind of like, I don't know, I can't think of an analogy that would be translatable to you that I could say, well, go out to, someplace that's close to Albuquerque, and I could give you that example, but then what good is that? So, realistically, yes, there is a water system that is you can tap into it, and there is some financial, cost that's associated with it, but water can be handled just fine. As far as the land, in general, it's, mesa type, fairly nice hunting ground type of thing if you wanted to do turkey or deer, that kind of thing. But the point is that I'm thinking more about, like, is there any sort of way to isolate it from a government rule type of thing.
Oh, I'll save Cody's ass for a second and say that one of the ways that you could sell me on it is being nerdy, geeky is I can't live without my internet, and I can't live, and I'm not talking like shit satellite internet where I get like 2 kilobits up and 0.5 kilobits down. I'm talking like if you can promise me some like modern internet infrastructure that doesn't suck, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'd be very, very interested in something like that. So, but I'm just
Check out Habitable Spaces too. It's this place over here next to a couple of miles away from San Antonio. I forget what the little town's called. And basically, they got on 1 acre, they got like 3 or 4 little mini buildings where one's like a kitchen, one's a living quarters, the other one's like a reading room, and then they have a bunch of chickens and a bunch of like goats like sectioned off, and they managed to grow all this food and stuff. It's just pretty intense. So I don't know. You can probably get some permaculture going, reclaim some desert, If it is deserty, I don't know.
Well, I don't even know where to start. But the thing is that I wonder, is there any sort of way that I can, what sort of contracts would you want? What sort of limitations would you want? It's just so big. It's such a big concept about. All right, well.
So you're basically thinking about making your own community.
I don't know even where to start. It's so big.
amenities.
I'm with Chuck.
What's that?
Amenities.
I'm
Amenities?
with Chuck.
Yeah. I mean, like you can tell me that it's great and that it's self-sustainable, and we grow all our own food there, and life is great. But if I can't get on Netflix at the end of the day, screw
Well, I mean,
you.
you can have both, right? I mean, there's no issue with that.
No, but what I'm
How
saying
far
is that what I would that's just saying that's something that I would look for is modern amenities.
He relies on the cloud.
Don't even get me fucking started on that. But yeah, I guess that analogy works for pragmatic sense of technology. But yeah, if you can promise me that, and I'm not even talking television because fuck that shit. But like I'm talking just like pure unadulterated.
How about just a D&D set?
Yeah, like I can go play World of Warcraft, which I wouldn't because it's a shitty game, but or I could go on Netflix, or I could go on YouTube. Those things, especially like we all have these shows to do, and if we get a Voluntary Virtues Network community, which would be pretty fucking awesome, they're gonna need a way to broadcast to the internet because broadcasting to a local area is great, but we already understand the concepts of liberty in this local area. We need to be able to get back out to the world. So if you can promise me internet, or that's where I would start. Maybe not start, but that's what would interest me the most as the liberty geek.
All right. Well, I think that there's just no more time to discuss that kind of thing. We're kind of we kind of exceeded the time that we're allotted to. So in any case, again, I do want to thank everyone who has joined tonight. Matthew, Kenshi, Chuck, and Rick, and of course Cody and Mike. Everyone who's been a part of this has been a wonderful conversation. I think that we've had a great time and just done all sorts of stuff. So thank you guys for joining me, and we're going to go ahead and call it a night, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast at this time. Again, peace, love, prosperity.